Minister, last year, more than 21,000 Irish citizens were granted Australian working holiday visas. This was the highest recorded figure in 16 years. Even during the 2008 crash, just 12,847 visas for Australia were issued. So a figure of 21,000 last year, when we have full employment in this country, is extraordinary. And it's something we should be talking about in this House, because clearly it is no country for young people, and those young people are now voting with their feet. Many of them don't want to leave, but they feel they have no other choice if they don't want to spend their entire 20s and 30s, even into their 40s, living in their childhood bedrooms while their life is passing them by. Minister, increasingly people just have no hope for their housing prospects in Ireland. Rents have doubled in the past decade. Young people simply cannot afford them. And record house prices means dreams of home ownership are long gone. Minister, housing is more than an investment vehicle. It's about more than bricks and mortar. It's about independence. It's about security. It's about relationships. It's about starting a family. It's the foundation for so much that is central to a happy life. But that foundation is missing now for an entire generation. Minister, how do you think that it feels for those people and for their parents when your approach is tried, tested, and it has failed, and you consistently just come in here in a state of denial, making promises that are later broken, setting targets that aren't met? We've now heard promises for years that things will get better. And then simultaneously, we see things like the reports that an investment fund put up 85% of the homes in Dublin in a housing estate. Just the latest example that things aren't changing. The flippant attitude of you and your government towards this speaks volumes. Government TDs have spent the last week downplaying it. You just did the same there. But the fact that you haven't bothered to close such a gaping loophole tells us all we need to know about where your priorities lie. And it's not with vulnerable renters or struggling first-time buyers who obviously cannot compete with €800 million funds that are cashing in on a crisis. Those 46 homes in Dublin are now on the rental market for €3,125 per month. That's rent of €37,500 a year. This is why 21,000 young people left this country to go to Australia last year. This is why it's obvious to everyone that your approach isn't working. This is why people have run out of hope. It's my belief that the only thing that will change this is a change in government, but perhaps you'll prove us wrong. Your 10% stamp duty on the bulk purchase of homes is clearly no disincentive to funds that are making super profits from a housing crisis. Sinn Féin's proposal to increase it to 17% won't work either. It's too weak. My colleague Cian O'Callaghan has put down an amendment to increase stamp duty on bulk purchase homes to 100%. It's an effective ban. What we need is an effective ban on the bulk purchase of homes. Will you do that and make some effort to at least deal with that low-hanging fruit?
Minister.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy. Firstly, just reject your assertion that in any way, shape or form we deal with housing in a flippant way. We certainly do not. We're very serious about it. This government's investing more than any previous government has in housing. We brought forward measures to help in housing. What I'd say to you as well, that whilst people do travel, and in Australia, if you've read about the housing situation in Australia and the cost of housing and the cost of rents in Australia, it's far worse than here. Deputy, 30,000 Irish citizens came back last year as well. You neglected to say that. And the measures we brought forward, like the Affordable Housing Act, which actually legislated for cost rental, and cost rental now, we've thousands of tenancies actually approved. Cost rental didn't exist here. State-backed affordable rents for working people. Your party, I'd remind you, Deputy, opposed the Affordable Housing Act and voted against it. So you voted against that which established the Affordable Housing Fund, which Deputy Cian O'Callaghan will be aware of, because in the Fingal area, your party also opposed one of the largest affordable and social housing developments in the country. 1,200 homes in Donabate, 253 social, 253 social and private homes as well. So at every given stage, and then when we say the Social Democrats also will say we want to build on state land, we're building on state land. But when we brought forward the Land Development Agency bill, what did the Social Democrats do? You voted against that as well. So you voted against the Affordable Housing Act, you voted against the Land Development Agency Act. Okay? Then also you look at first-time buyers that you purport to want to represent. You oppose the Help to Buy grant, you oppose the First Home scheme. So, you know, we're bringing forward measures that are actually working, and it takes time to turn housing around. And if you look at where we are with completions, that since we have taken over, and so we've come into government, this coalition, that by the end of 2023 we'll have built over 100,000 new homes in this country. There are still stresses and demands there unquestionably, and that's why we need to increase supply across all tenures. That's why last year we'll have built more new social homes than we've done in 50 years. Affordable homes for the first time in a generation. And in relation to renters, cost rental is taking hold now. We've cost rental apartment developments right the way across this country. And I've met those tenants, I've met people who've actually been able to get safe and secure tenancies there at minimum 25% below market. That's working. But the Social Democrats have opposed every single measure and every single piece of legislation that's come in here into this House. Cian, the voting record shows for itself. I still await the Social Democrats' housing policy or housing plan as to what you would do differently. The reality is we back first-time buyers. We back renters. We brought in the renters' tax credit as well. To help defray the cost there. The rental market is far from perfect, I know that. Now, in relation to bulk purchase, you will also know, and I've explained to Deputy Doherty earlier on, that we've changed planning law from May 2021. Over 40,000 homes now have the owner-occupier guarantee in place that's there. About 1% of properties that's a legacy issue have been purchased, and with the 10% surcharge applies to that. And I've said already in response to Deputy Doherty, that is a rate that should be reviewed and will be reviewed. But let's put it in context as well. Less than 1% of property transactions.
Deputy Cairns.
Minister, your defence is quite frankly pathetic. All you do is come in here and mislead the Dáil about housing objections. You know that what you said isn't true, and I think it says a lot about the absence of a real defence in relation to this. You try and bamboozle people with figures when you come in with your reply. Here's a figure. You promised 55,000 affordable homes in 2023. You delivered 4% of that by October. That's what the promise was. I'm saying you come in here and you set targets and you don't meet them.
30,000 houses in total.
You talk about putting things in context and, you know, the reality of how long it takes to build homes all the time. Everyone recognises that it takes time to address this, but this and the previous governments have had, you know, 12 years of Fine Gael in government trying to address this, and it's simply not working. So then we come in here, you say, you're making no suggestions. I literally just made a suggestion to try and stamp out the bulk buying of homes. We need an effective ban. There's a suggestion. Other low-hanging fruit is things like tackling vacancy. At a time when house price inflation was 10%, you introduced a 0.3% tax on vacancy. That's feigning an attempt to address vacancy.
Thank you, Deputy.
You feign an attempt to stamp out bulk buying of homes.
Time is up, please.
There's two suggestions, low-hanging fruit, things you can do immediately. Will you do that?
I think, Deputy, firstly, to recognise everything I've stated here in the House is correct in relation to the Social Democrats' approach to housing. You tell me one thing that I've actually said that's incorrect, and if you can't, because what I've stated is fact. The reality of it is as well is that we brought changes into planning to ensure that the owner-occupier guarantee is there, and that's in place. 40,000 plus homes have that condition in place. There are legacy issues with planning permissions that were granted before that. I don't like to see the sale of family homes to vulture funds either. And that's what I've said in response to Deputy Doherty, and I've said already to you, is that the rate will be reviewed, and I intend to have discussions with the Minister for Finance in that regard. But you have to put it in context as well. You cannot catastrophise everything. And you particularly can't when you're coming in here when you don't have any policies yourself. Your party has not come forward with any suggestions with regard to housing delivery. And as in fact of 54,000, our target last year, Deputy, was 29,000 new homes. We will exceed that. And you'll see that later this month or early February. We'll exceed it substantially. For the second year of Housing for All, we'll have exceeded our targets. And we'll have delivered over 100,000 new homes by the end of 2023. And we know we need to do a lot more, and we're determined to do that.
Deputy Michael McNamara, please.